Is it time to replace your rack? Maybe it's bent, broken, or just getting some slop in it? Well, SuperATV's got you covered with our heavy-duty rack and pinion, and today we're going to show you how to get one installed on this Polaris RZR Trail S 1000. So let's get right to it. The first thing you're going to do is go ahead and remove your front wheels and tires. Next, you're going to go ahead and remove your tie rods from your steering knuckle. As you can see, we're already running SuperATV heavy-duty tie rods, so we're just going to go ahead and take our misalignment bushing and our nut and just throw it right back on the stud. That way we don't lose it. If you're running factory hardware, you don't have to worry about this. And we're going to go ahead and remove the tie rod from this side as well, and then we're going to remove our pinch bolt from our steering shaft that goes to our rack and pinion. Then you'll just want to rotate your shaft to where your hardware lines up, just like ours right there. So we're just going to go ahead and take our wrench. It's a 15. You just want to go ahead and get it on the head of your pinch bolt. Then we're going to reach around, and if you have somebody to help you, this is actually a little bit easier that way. And sometimes your bolt will get stuck, so I just take a Phillips screwdriver or punch or whatever. You just don't want to hit the threads directly, and then just kind of tap it out. Then what you're going to want to do next is you're going to want to rotate your steering shaft to where you can get it to this point right here. Then what I like to do is take a flathead screwdriver, just kind of tap it in here. Spread it apart. What that's doing is just making it so it's going to come off the splines that much easier. If you still have your factory sway bar installed, at this point you want to go ahead and remove it from both sides. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove all of our rack bolts. So we got our studs out of the frame. You just got to kind of be a little bit rough with it, to be honest. And you'll just want to take your steering shaft, rotate it all the way opposite where it was. So like I said, you just have to wiggle it around. You just have to get it to where it clears everything. Have to get a little bit aggressive with it in a few spots. The rack comes right out. Like I said, it is a little bit of a pain. You just gotta move it around a lot, wiggle it around, but it'll come out. So the next thing you're gonna do, whenever you get your rack out of the box, you're gonna notice it has the boots on it. Go ahead and pull the boots off. And then we're gonna make this super easy for you all. The way you center rack is you're gonna turn it all the way one way, take a measurement, and then divide that by 2. But we're just gonna go ahead and give you the exact measurement because obviously we have it. You wanna take a measurement from this point right here on the rack, and you wanna measure to the face right here. So that needs to be 48 millimeters. So if you look, we're right there at 48 millimeters, which is exactly where it needs to be for it to be centered. This side's a little bit harder to measure, but you can get a tape measure in here. But right there, that's all the way in. If you look at it, 48 millimeters. The way I was rotating this, it has this little cap. It's just taking a pair of vice grips, grabbing a hold of it, and then rotating it. And what I'm gonna do, the rack's gonna be sitting in the machine just like this. This will be the passenger side, this is the driver's side. This point right here is visible when looking through. So we're just gonna run a line all the way up through here. And it's fine if it's a big line, you know, that doesn't much matter. You just wanna make sure that you can see it. A lot of times I get a little out of hand with my lines, but it makes them nice and visible so you know when your rack is centered and when it is not. And that will be very crucial for the next step whenever we get it installed and line it up with the steering shaft. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our boots, slide them over the inner ball and sockets, slide it all the way through the stud, and get it lined up on the rack. So on the passenger side of the rack and pinion, you will have a smaller boot. For the driver's side, you'll have a bigger boot. And this side right here will be the passenger side. You want to make sure you slide your boot up to where you can still get onto that right there. You're going to need that to tighten the inner ball and socket, or tighten the inner tie rod. Alright, so then we'll just take our zip tie, run it down there, get it as tight as we possibly can. And do the same thing for the inner. Kind of peel your boot back up just a little bit so you can make sure you get on that surface there. And cut off the excess of your zip ties. And just do the same exact thing with the opposite boot on this side. Then we'll just cut off the excess of our zip ties on this side as well. And then we're ready to get our rack and pinion installed to the machine. So we're just gonna slide this rack in the same way that the factory one came out, except this one's gonna go in a lot easier than the factory one came out, because as you can see, there's no fixed studs, so it's just gonna slide right in there, no problem. So once you have your rack in place, you want to make sure that your steering wheel is completely straight. So looks like ours is good and straight. We didn't mess with it too much. And then we just want to verify that our rack is still centered, which ours is. So now we're going to slide it onto the splines of the steering shaft as well as get it up into position. This part's a little tricky. Just going to get it lined up. All right, so we got it started on the splines. Now we're just gonna grab our rack. And get it slid up into position to where it's gonna mount. Then we're gonna get the provided hardware out of the kit. On the driver's side, you'll be running the 3 long bolts. So we're just gonna take one of our long bolts out of our hardware kit. We're gonna slide it right through the hole in the rack to line up with the hole in the frame. Then we'll just take one of our nylock nuts that are provided. We'll just continue putting our long bolts in. Then you'll just want to go ahead and fully tighten all your hardware. Then just go ahead and reinstall your pinch bolt as well as sway bar links. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your inner jam nut that you removed off of your inner tie rod right before you centered your rack, and then grab your tie rod. So we're going to take this nut and we're going to thread this all the way up. Then we're going to take the tie rod. So you're going to have a textured side. The textured side is going to face towards the outside. The smooth side is going to go to the inside. Then you're going to grab your right hand threaded nut and your tie rod in and thread the jam nut all the way up the tie rod in here. So it'll look just like this. And then this is going to left hand thread into the tie rod. So something like this. And then before you do anything, you want to make sure that your rack's still centered. So ours is, and then you want to make sure that your steering wheel's straight, which ours is as well. So once we've verified that, we're going to grab our tapered stud, drop it down in the steering arm, take one of our nylock nuts, thread it on the bottom. What I like to do is take my tie rod in, go ahead and get it on the tapered stud, take my misalignment bushing, slide it on. Then install my other lock nut. Then we're going to grab a 19 wrench and a 19 socket. Just go ahead and tighten it from the bottom and have your wrench on top. Make sure you got them good and tight. Then we're gonna take our cotter pins, go ahead and get them installed. Just slide it right through the hole on the tapered stud, and just bend that cotter pin away from itself. Then just repeat the same steps for the opposite side. Now reinstall your wheels and tires and lower the machine back down on the ground. All right, so now we got the machine sat back down on the ground. We got Chad in here helping us today. What we're gonna do is roll the machine back and forth about 5 times to get the suspension settled, and we're gonna start taking some measurements. 4 and 5. Whoa. Then we're gonna make sure that our steering wheel's straight. Looks like Chad's got it good and straight for us. So now we're gonna grab our tape measure. Then we're gonna take a measurement from this center line on this tire to the front of that tire as well, and then we'll do the back side. So it looks like we're right at 1370 millimeters on the front, and then we're at 1330. So we're about 40 millimeters out. So all we would do is adjust our tie rods 20 millimeters on either side to where our measurement on the front of the tires is the same as on the back of the tires. So if you do need to make any adjustments, you'll just grab your tie rod here and spin it either way, depending on what you need to do. Another little trick is I like to put a black dot on my inner ball and socket as well as my tie rod. That way I can keep track of how many turns I've made. Once you have it all set, all you're gonna wanna do is go through, fully tighten these jam nuts down on the inner as well as the outer. Just get them good and tight. Once you've got your toe set and your jam nuts tight, that's all there is to it to install SuperATV's heavy duty rack and pinion on this Polaris RZR Trail S 1000. For more information on this rack and pinion or any of SuperATV's great products, feel free to give us a call or check us out online. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.